Good morning, and thank you again for joining us for this webinar on virtual events, ticketing, auctions, donations, and best practices for congregations and institutions that rely on an annual fundraiser to fund their outreach or other parts of their budget. We have been working with nonprofits and institutions all summer long to ask them, how are you running your event this year if you are going to do so online? And what can we learn? So together we are all learning. As this pandemic has taught us, we're all coming up with new skills and new ways to do things, the church universal. So as we move through today, I hope that we accomplish these learning objectives, that we learn a few best practices for fundraising events in general. So this will be sort of a why do we do events and what are some best practices around them. Many of you perhaps have done Fund a Need or Raise Your Paddle for donations or other things at events where people can sort of in instant gratification text their money, or they can make a pledge and see the ticker go up. So we'll be talking a little bit about Fund a Need and how we can do that through technology. We'll be talking a little about online ticketing and registration. So every good event needs a way to get people enrolled in it, communicate about it, and so we'll be talking about that with you. We'll be talking through a review of the common platforms that nonprofits and churches are using for auctions, both live and silent. So we'll be reviewing some of the most common ones, and I'll be talking about the pluses and minuses and some of the costs associated with them. And then we'll do sort of a technical recap on how to run an event. If you're just joining us, thank you and welcome. Please type your questions into the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen. That is where I will be every once in a while looking at your questions and answering them. So every few slides I will stop and I will ask for questions. As they come up, please type them into that Q&A box, and that is what I will be using. So many of our congregations do rely on end of year or throughout the year fundraising events. They can be talent shows or chili feeds or bake sales and craft fairs, Christmas bazaars, all those various ways that we engage outside our pledge drive in fundraising for the church. These are really important revenue streams for many of our congregations and our institutions, our affiliated nonprofits, our preschools, things like that. We want to make sure that you in this difficult year can do those events virtually. And we encourage you, so that our first piece of advice is that you do those events. Don't cancel them. Find a way to do them online this year. And there is technology, there is help, and we'll be walking through that today. Keep your annual schedule of this event. If it happens in October, run it in October. There are ways to do this virtually. You're going to need to pick a platform, and we're going to be going through those platforms today. You're going to need to pick one. They all have, once you kind of lock yourself into one, they have various strengths, and you can use them to your advantage. But at some point, you're going to have to pick a platform and move through it. We'll be talking a little bit about those. One of the best things about a virtual event is that you can really use social media to your advantage. We'll be talking through a couple of those best practices today as we move through it. And I suspect that many of you have some ideas on this too. And as you are asking your questions, you can also type in some of your experiences that you've had, things that you've seen go well, and I'll read those out to the whole group, and we'll be able to take a look at them together and talk them through. So thank you for that. I know that you have collective wisdom here as well. So the first thing we need to do when we're running an event is to understand, why are we doing this? This is a question that every every nonprofit, every church should ask as they are thinking about any fundraising venture, including their pledge campaign, but most especially when we're talking about special event fundraisers. Why is this event necessary? Why are we doing this? And what are the things that we want to achieve from it? So there are many surveys and many articles that have been written in 2020 about virtual events. And so I commend you to do a Google search and find out what other people are saying. One of the statistics that I've been motivated by as I've been thinking about this year is that 91 of nonprofits and churches that are running virtual events this year said that they did so to keep members connected. So they also listed other reasons, but 91% of them said that connecting and staying connected was the reason to do an event online this year. That's different from last year. If you'd asked them last year, why are you running an event? The top answer would have been to raise money or to raise awareness, right? And those are also reasons that we run events. But this year, 91% of churches and organizations that are running events are doing so to keep everyone connected. That's a really important thing to think through and a good statistic in our national measure to think about. When we have been so isolated this year and our churches meeting online or virtually or outdoors or in parking lots in the various ways we can do so to keep each other safe, keeping community together is a really important motivating factor. So think through that. And if your fundraising event has always relied on just the funding side and the mission side, which is great, we are fundraisers, think about the other connective pieces this year that your constituents, your members, are hungry for and trying to stay connected with each other. When you run your annual event virtually, there are several benefits and reasons why to do it. So if you always are running your event at a certain time every year, there's a rhythm to that in your church. So we want you to be able to continue that this year. People expect it. They have maybe decades of stories around this event. If it's really important to the life of your congregation, please do find a way to run it virtually this year. So continue the tradition. The other benefit, of course, to running an online event is that they are significantly less expensive to execute. You don't have to rent a venue. You don't have to engage in some of the food and beverage cost that you might otherwise do if you're running an event. So things become very much less expensive, which means that the money you're raising goes even more to the mission and doesn't have to pay off bills. So that's always a good thing in an event. Of course, they raise awareness for the mission. And so many of our churches historically rely on their own members to raise money in these events that they do. And maybe sometimes they are friend-raising events too, where you might bring a friend along who's not a member of your church to come to an event. But when you're doing it virtually, it's so much easier to invite your friends to participate because it's a click of a button on your Facebook or your social media. It's an easy way for you to invite people, and a virtual event is a low barrier event for your friends to participate. So if you're trying to raise your awareness, raise awareness in your community for the mission work that you're doing, or trying to do friend-raising events where you are bringing new people in who may or may not become members, but may also become supporters. This is a really important way to do it this year. And so do think about how you can incorporate those invitations to invite our friends into these mission-driven online events this year. And as I said before, one of the benefits is that it's a much needed social outlet in these periods of isolation that we are experiencing. So I have a few creative ideas. The first is, and I'll say this, you've heard it already about 4 times this morning, and I'll keep saying it, mission related. Keep it focused on why you are doing this event and what the money that you're raising or the goodwill you are raising in the community, what is that going for? So who is being helped by this? What sorts of outreach come of it? What is the impact of that outreach? I ask this always of congregations when they do their pledge campaigns, and also very much so when they are doing their auctions or their events. Use metrics and numbers to register impact. For example, if your benefit is for your preschool, you might say, we educated 100 kids this year, and talk about what are the measures of success. So we have this many families involved. We have this many families outside our church involved. Those are all numbers that you can use to communicate your message. If your mission work is about a food program, you might be able to talk this year about the number of people who have accessed your food program or your food ministry. You might be able to say, we delivered 1,000 bags of groceries, or whatever your measure of success is. Use those metrics to talk about why you are doing these events and really be excited about that. It's the numbers that matter when we are talking about these mission-related events, because they show the impact of our work in our communities. So be clear about what your funds are going for, especially if they're doing something besides funding the operating budget. So if they're funding a specific outreach ministry or a specific program, be really clear and upfront about that. Invite representatives of the community to come and appear virtually, either in a pre-recorded message, or if you're doing a Zoom or a live event, you can beam them in to your Zoom and they can speak to you. This is really important, like if you can get a city council person, if you can get the mayor, if you can get the executive director of a local nonprofit or a school, someone who can talk about what your work does in the community. What would the community look like if you weren't there to do this work? So bring in members from the greater community to be able to talk about that. And virtually, that is much easier than trying to schedule, for example, the mayor to come to your event when they have 7 other events that evening to go to. They can pre-record a message and be excited about that, or they can just give you 5 minutes on Zoom and then go 5 minutes somewhere else without the commute time and their handlers having to get them from one place to another. You can really involve community partners a lot easier virtually than you might do if you're trying to run this in person. When you're using Zoom, this is just a good tip in general, use the waiting room so that you can verify that people have purchased a ticket or signed up, people that you know. This is just a basic safety tip on Zoom. We want to know who is joining our events, not because we want barriers, but because we are protecting and keeping our community safe. So just know who's coming in, and then you can admit them one by one. I like to think of this sort of as like announcing people at the royal banquet, right? So you let Davey in to the room and you say, here's Davey, and everybody cheers, whatever, it's great. People always cheer when I come into a room. So make it fun, make it funny. You can use the Zoom waiting room and let people in like that in groups or in households, and make it part of the fun of the evening. Not everybody arrives on time, so you can say, here's the Smith family arriving fashionably late. Whatever, have fun. This is an event, right? If you're selling tickets, and I'll talk in a moment about selling tickets in general, but if you're selling tickets, come up with some new and interesting ticket packages and ways to say, this is not your usual events. You're not buying a table. You're not, you're not going to a place. You're staying home. So if I'm going to ask you to pay money to come to this thing or to set aside the time for this thing, what are some ideas? And I've done this before in nonprofits and in churches that have taken their event virtually for whatever reason in the past. So, trade in your high heels for your fuzzy slippers. You don't need to buy that new shirt and tie. You can wear your flannel. Forgot to order the vegan entree. It's already in your fridge. So have a little fun with your ticket packages, and let people know that they're still attending an event, and they're still supporting the mission, but have a little fun with it. What are the events that you can do? Well, there's no limit really, and it's all about how your community wants to engage. I have seen talent shows. So all summer long in research for this stuff, I've been watching and being invited to have my friends invite me to their online events. And I've seen talent shows. They are just as silly and creative and sometimes inspiring and beautiful as they can be in person. So I've seen everything from somebody playing classical piano and the cameras, in their house aimed at it, and they play their piece and everybody applauds. I've seen skits and I've seen comedy routines and I've seen juggling. It's all there. It's all of our talents come onto the screen. You can do this. Zoom makes that possible, and you can schedule people for their 2 minutes or their 5 minutes. There are tools on Zoom, polls and voting, so that you can give a high score and thumbs up and applause and all those things that we do in events, but you'll be doing them virtually. You can decide if there are winners and prizes, or you can give everyone the gold medal. That's up to you and your community. But talent shows are a great, easy, fun thing to do on Zoom. I've seen dinners happen. So, they pick a local caterer, for example, and everybody goes and either has their meal delivered in a bag, or they go that afternoon and pick it up from the catering place and they bring it home and they reheat it, and they're eating the same meal together. So much as you would do if you're having a dinner in your church or doing some fundraising, you can do this at home, and everybody can share the same menu. You can still do it the same way. So, ticketing would work where you would just include the price of the dinner in that ticket, so that it would be paid for at the catering company. People come and pick it up. So that's a great way to have an online event where everybody is sharing the same meal and sharing the same experience. I've seen craft fairs and bake sales. Somebody holds up their beautiful cake and people bid on it. And people say, I will drop off this package of cookies. Here's a basket of wine, whatever, homemade beer, bread. We're all making bread in the pandemic. So maybe you don't want more, but people are baking it and selling it and dropping it off for Zoom and other virtual events. So think about that. There are really fun ways to continue some of the traditions that we have in our church events, and ways to do this virtually. We'll be talking a little bit about auctions in a minute. We'll go into a lot more detail. I know that many of you run silent auctions, and that can be a little daunting when you're thinking about it virtually, but we have a lot of tricks and tips for you, which we'll get to. When you're doing a online event, keep it short. So we've all been on Zoom now for 6 months. Some of us are doing hours of Zoom a day for school, for our social lives, for our work, for church. So we are all Zooming and doing a lot of Zoom. So when we ask people to participate in an online event, honor their time and really try to keep it short. I know that when we do these dinners and we gather for an event in church, it's always fun, and we can go on for 3 and 4 hours and have a long evening out of it. But when we're doing this online, keep it short, keep it tidy, keep it mission focused, because our attention span online is just what it is. So keep it to 2 hours max, and that includes like the dinner and the chatting and the laughing. Make it as much as make it as much like an in-person gathering as you can, right? So yes, we are virtual and we understand we're looking at a screen instead of across the table at each other, but you can use music between slides or at different points in the program. You can cue music to play. You can use colors and motion on your screen and make some life out of it. Definitely use Zoom meeting, not Zoom webinar. So today you're all on a webinar where you can't see each other, but in an online event, you would want to run that as a meeting where everybody's picture and face is up and they can look and talk to each other just like they want to do at an event. They're there to see each other. Another great reason to do it on Zoom is because people who don't want to or can't participate via video can always call in on Zoom. It's one of the best but often most overlooked features in Zoom is that you can participate if screens aren't your thing, or if you don't have the connectivity or the experience to do it. Zoom allows you to use your telephone, which presumably everybody knows how to do. And while you can't see and be seen, you can hear and be heard on your phone. And so that can really increase the participation rate. You should have special guests at your events if you can. They should be either beneficiaries of your service or grantees, however you see that, or other folks who are participating in the mission work. You can have them speak in their own words. You can coach them and give them some ways to engage. I'm going to stop for a minute and ask you if you have any questions on the types of events that you can run, or maybe you want to type into the box some events that you have done or are thinking about doing, and I can talk about that with you and share that with the room. If you have any questions so far, please type them in. Otherwise, we'll keep going. Seeing none, I'm going to move on. I want to talk now about fund a need or text to give. At many different events, we come to the moment in the evening, perhaps after an auction or after other kinds of fundraising has happened, where we do the fund a need. And that is simply people making in the moment gifts to benefit the bottom line of the organization or the mission. Fund a need, the goal is to get everyone to participate. So maybe they couldn't buy something in the auction or didn't win their bid or something like that. Fund a need is a way to say, this is, you can make your gift of $5 or $5,000 at this moment. There's a way to do this. And many organizations will do sort of if you've been issued a paddle or other device, you can say, I'll give $2,500, and then, your credit card is charged for it and it goes on the screen. Davey just gave $2,500. The Smith family just gave $1,000. Isn't that wonderful? And it's a moment for everybody to be able to participate in your event. There's software, and we'll be talking about that in a minute, that helps people do that right on their phone and in the moment. And so it's great. It allows your guests to see who is making a gift. It inspires generosity, even competition. And that can be a good thing when we're raising money for a good cause. And it's also instant gratification. So you make the gift and you see the ticker go up and you see the benefit of that gift. There is a great tool out there that many of our congregations are already using to do their pledge campaigns, and that's Tithely. Tithely is an app, and you can use it either on a web-based application or on your phone. And it allows you to put a bank account or a debit card or a credit card in as a payment vehicle, and allows you then to make gifts, either recurring as a pledge, or you can do a text to give where the money instantly transfers out of your account and into the church account. And it happens, so you can run an event like this. As members of TENS, you get a big discount on Tithely because we have a good relationship with them and they gave all of our members a discount. You get $10 off every one of those transactions when you do a text to give. Text to give is generally a little bit more expensive, so it'll still cost you a few dollars per transaction, but you'll get a big discount when you use Tithely to do that. We're going to be talking about some other platforms in a minute that give you other ways to do text to give. It is a really, really good way to clean up any remaining money at an event. And it's a low barrier. It's really easy for people to use. It's really fun if you get into the spirit of it. I really recommend it as a tool. Fun to Need, Tithely, or some other platform that you may use. I want to talk a little bit about ticketing as well. So every event needs a way to register people so that you're expecting them. All of you who participated in this event today used Eventbrite, which sends out automatic emails. You can schedule those for as many of them as you want for whatever period of time you want them. You'll note through your own registration process for this event, you got a confirmation email when you registered. You got another one 2 days ago from Eventbrite saying, don't forget, there's a webinar coming up and here's how you access it. And then you got one 2 hours ago, if you've checked your email this morning. You got another one 2 hours ago saying, just a reminder, your event is starting soon. You can run those in any way you want. It allows you to communicate with the people who are signing up for your events and give them information. So Eventbrite is free. That is one of the best things about it. It doesn't cost anything for you to set it up or to use it for free events. If you are doing it for your ticketing, it has a payment transaction piece attached to it. So you can sell tickets to an event. It's very easy to set that up. There will be a fee that is passed on to the donor when they buy a gift or when they buy a ticket. So, and that's usually about 5.5%. That's a little bit more expensive than a lot of other transaction costs for fundraising software that you'll see. But it's because so much of Eventbrite is free. This is the way they make their money, is by on the ticket sales. So there is a cost. It's passed on to the donor. They can use that to their advantage if they need to, but it's a way to keep that running, and it's a good way to do event. So it's also completely integrated with Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, which is to say, once you've set up your event in Eventbrite, you can copy it, seamlessly into your Facebook. So if your church has a Facebook page and you run your events through that, you can just do it. So people click either on Eventbrite or on Facebook, and it all goes to the same place. So you get a list ahead of time of who's showing up, and you can communicate with them ahead of time. I did it through these emails, just reminding you that there was an event. But in the case of a fundraising event, you can communicate with them days in advance about some of the auction items that are coming up for bid. We just got in a really new auction item. It's going to be really exciting. Here's a picture of it. Tell your friends. This is going to be fun. Or you can send out other messages like, we still have 10 spots left. We really need to sell 10 more tickets. Reach out to your friends. How can you do that? So there are really good ways within the platform to keep in touch. I see that we have some questions coming in, and so I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask and answer them. So thank you for that. Suzanne asks, is Fund a Need a platform app? So Fund a Need is a concept in fundraising where you do that sort of instant gratification fundraising. The app is Tithely, or other apps that we'll be talking about. So I'm going to go through some more auction platforms in a minute, and they will talk about how they do that Fund a Need piece. But Fund a Need itself isn't a platform; it's just a concept in fundraising. Sharon asks asks about Tithely. If there's a $10 per transaction discount, what is the standard per transaction charge? So as I said, Fund a Need or Text to Give is usually a very expensive thing because it runs through a series of protocols through your bank and your phone. So the standard transaction rate is $19 per transaction. So if you think about it, if you're giving $20 and you're spending $19 to do it, you're not giving a whole lot to the cause with that. You do get a $10 discount with Tithely, so that's only a $9 per transaction cost, but it's still expensive, right? So it's really for like gifts of 100 or 200, 1,000. That's where it starts to make a little sense. It's not for small gifts. But Text to Give and Fund a Need, those are two ways to talk about the same concept, are ways to raise money quickly. They are expensive. Suzanne asks a follow-up question. With Fund a Need, do you then need to put up particular needs? So usually Fund a Need or Text to Give goes to the bottom line of the event. You might be saying, we do all this great work. So please give your gift unrestricted, just keep it coming in, and this is how we're raising money tonight. If you came here to the event, you came here to spend a little money, you came here to do this great work, this is a way to do that. In general, I favor unrestricted funding because then you don't have to, worry about how it's being spent. It's going all toward the mission, and that's what matters. You can do it in a way where you could construct a Fund a Need to say, all right, we still need to fund our youth trip, if we are ever doing youth trips again. We still need to fund our youth trip, and it's going to take this much money, and so all the Fund a Need is going to this. You could do that. You could run it that way if that's where you want to do it. Whatever you designate that Fund a Need for, you just have to be clear. So if earlier your auction proceeds were going to the whole fund or the whole mission, and your Fund a Need is only going to something specific, be very transparent about that so that people understand where their money is going. Janet says that she wants to know more about Eventbrite and what that percentage is. So if you are selling a ticket for $100 to your event, the church gets $100 when that ticket is sold, And Eventbrite will charge another 5.5%, so 550, to the donor, and they keep that money. It's their transaction, it's their cost or their fee for providing you the service of ticket sales. So that money gets passed along to the donor. The donor will learn that as they're in the process, or you can tell them about it ahead of time. Your $100 ticket will actually cost $105.50, and that $550 goes to Eventbrite. $100 goes to the church. Does that answer that question? Great. If there are no other questions, I'm going to move on to talking more about our auction platforms. Great, thank you. So let's talk about auctions. I'm going to take a sip of water. Before we look at platforms, let's step back for a second. Is this the year for an auction? This is an ethical or moral question that you and your church may ask. You've done silent auctions or live auctions for years. They've always been great fundraisers. They've always been fun. It gets people interested. It gets people to open up their vacation homes or restaurants. But this is a year where many businesses are struggling or closed. It may be a question you want to ask and answer for your members. Why are we doing an auction? Do we need more stuff? Is this a rummage sale where we're getting rid of some of our stuff and swapping it with each other and making a little money for the church in the process? Let's be clear about why we're doing it. So I'm not suggesting not to do it. I'm saying if you're doing an auction in 2020, let's be really clear and have that conversation with each other about why we are running an auction this year. If you usually ask businesses to donate things, well, what does that look like in 2020? So our restaurants are struggling. If they, depending on what part of the country you're in, they may be open, they may be closed, they may be only open for takeout or outdoor dining. Do they have the money or the interest in being able to give away services this year? So if your auctions usually rely on local businesses donating things, you may have to rethink that this year. But one idea is, how can you help? How can you partner with local businesses in rebuilding their customer base after such a devastating year? So if there are ways that you can say, if you offer a gift certificate, we will make sure it gets sold, and that will be people coming into your restaurant. It'll be, maybe you just give the gift certificate for the meal and then they purchase the beverages on their own, or construct that in some way that the business will also get some benefit. We're needing to help our businesses and our communities rebuild together as we are rebuilding after this devastating year. So when you reach out to local businesses, have a plan in mind. Think about how you can help them get their message out, do advertising. Maybe you can run some special deal with members who have been to your event where they get a discount for going to the restaurant. That's sometimes a way to entice businesses to be able to give you a gift certificate, for example. So think about that. It's a different year than it was last year or in other years. Businesses are suffering in a different way than they have in other recessions because of the real restrictions on just doing business that they have this year. But let's also remember that auctions are vibrant. They are historically great fundraisers, and they are wonderful ways to raise money for an organization and to have a lot of fun doing it. Keep them very mission focused this year. This is just really important for all of us because that's why we're doing this. Let's look at some platforms. So I'm going to go through 3 different tiers of platforms. We're going to be talking about a free one, and we're going to be talking about a couple of mid-tier. By mid-tier, I mean they have some setup costs, but they're not exorbitant. Then we're going to be talking about a couple of what I call enterprise level platforms, and those have a lot of bells and whistles on them. And if you raise a lot of money in auctions and you have a lot of money to spend on your event, they are a great investment, but they cost a lot. So we'll be going through free, mid-tier, and at enterprise level auctions. Your basic free charity auction can run on eBay. There is a special version of eBay called eBay for Charity, which you can find and sign yourself up for. You have to verify your church or your ministry with it, which shows that you have a tax ID number as a nonprofit organization. And it doesn't cost anything to do that, but you must submit some paperwork and they have to be able to verify it. It usually takes 1 to 3 business days, but everything's a little slower. They are getting a lot more of these requests this year. So give it, a week or longer for that registration process to take place. But eBay for Charity is a great way to run your auction, and it's free. Payment is integrated through PayPal. PayPal and eBay are buddies, and they work seamlessly with each other. So you will have to set up your church or your bank account with PayPal in order to be able to receive the funds from your eBay for Charity auction. That is free to the church as well. PayPal wants to make it easy for you to use their service. But there will be a fee, like there was in Eventbrite. There is a fee for PayPal, and they will perhaps ask for 2.5% to 3%, depending on the volume of work you're doing. It can be 2.1% to 3%. They will ask for in a transaction cost, which you can ask your donor to absorb, or you yourself, the organization, can cut that out of your profit. So you have 2 options with PayPal for that. And PayPal is the way that eBay for Charity accepts payment for things in its auction. eBay for Charity also allows for 2 different kinds of fundraising or charities to be run. They call direct selling and community selling. Direct selling, which is where you take pictures and write descriptions of the stuff in your auction, and you put them up on your charity website, and the auction is run through that. Community selling is where I'm a member of your church and I have something that I would like to put up in the auction, something wonderful, a service or an item. I take a picture of it and write the description and set its opening bid and its incremental bid. I promise that I will deliver that option or that event, that item to you or to the purchaser, the buyer, the winner. And the church will get all the money. So direct selling is where the church uploads it. Community selling is where members upload it, and all the money still goes to the church. It's a really great way, using the eBay platform that many of us already know, to be able to run an event, and it's free. I see we have a question that's come up about eBay before I move on to other ones. Linda asks, so am I correct that a church can open a PayPal account? Is it through the regular church bank account? Is there any negative to that? So yes, the first answer is yes. You open a PayPal account through your church. your treasurer or your parish administrator, whoever has your bank account information, should be the one to do that. It should run through your regular church account. PayPal is a really safe system. It's trusted worldwide. Many people use it. And so it should be fairly straightforward for your treasurer to be able to do this. By the way, PayPal also is a great way for your church in general to receive online donations or even pledge payments. A lot of churches have a link to PayPal on their Support Us or their Stewardship Pledge Drive website. PayPal is a great way for a church to receive funds, whether it's ongoing through for operating support or, in this instance, for a charity auction. I don't see any real negative to PayPal. In general, the more options a church gives its donors, its members, a way to give money, the better. So we want to offer as many ways as your treasurer or your administrator can handle to give people options to give money to your church. PayPal is a great system because many people use it day to day for online transactions and they're pretty comfortable with it. Thanks for that question, Linda. I'm going to move on through a few other platforms and then I'll ask for more questions about platforms in general. Some mid-tier auction platforms. Benefit events is one that many of our congregations are using this year. It works really well with back-end systems. So if you use QuickBooks or other accounting tools on your back end, benefit events is a really great way and a good system to do that. It has its own payment processing, but look at the fees. So it costs $500 for your organization to set itself up on benefit events. And then there's a hefty transaction cost, 8%, on anything up to $25,000, and then then you go down from that. So this is a mid-tier. It costs some money. If you make a lot of money on your auctions historically, you may want to go with a mid-tier or an enterprise tier software because it gives you a lot more things, a lot more pieces. For example, benefit event gives you mobile bidding, so you can bid from a website. You can also do it from your phone, and that increases the speed in an auction when you're doing it on Zoom, like you're saying, this vacation home is going up right now, and you're watching people bid. It can really speed that up, which could result in more money being raised for your church. Always a good thing. So it does not include any of the ticketing pieces. It just is there for your auction. So mid-tier, it costs some money, but it gives you some great options. Octria is another one. I know a lot of congregations in the Diocese of Los Angeles are using this year. And I've spoken with folks in New York. I've spoken with folks in Florida who are also using this for their events this year. Again, it's a little less expensive. So it's actually a lot less expensive. So take a look at that setup fee. $199 setup gives you one auction a year. $399 gives you 4 auctions a year. The fee on credit card transactions is much less. So 0.5%, that's very low. So they are really giving you a good deal. They're not taking a lot of money. They make their money on the setup, not on the credit card transactions. It's a really good system. A lot of churches are using it this year. It has its own payment processing. That's what that 0.5% goes for. You can do mobile integrated mobile bidding, and it makes checkout really easy. So you sign on, You create an account. Davey has an account. It's tied to his credit card. When he wins the thing, his credit card is charged, the church gets its money, and everybody's happy. It's a really good system. Bidding for good. I have used this for many years, both in church and in nonprofit events. It's a really robust system. It will mirror your church's website. So they have a process where they will like take your colors and your look and your logo. And so it looks like the rest of your church. And that's really helpful in building credibility, making people feel like it's a legitimate thing. It allows you to also have sponsors. So many of us run our events where we also try to ask big donors in our community or organizations, newspapers sometimes, or other media to sponsor our event. Banks, community banks will do this often. You know, will you give $5,000 for the event to cover our costs? Bidding for Good has a sponsorship portal, so you can make those asks really easy and get the money, and it all goes into your event. It's really easy to connect to your social network, but Bidding for Good also allows you to connect to a nationwide or a global network of donors. And I want to talk just 1 second about that. When you set up your auction on Bidding for Good, you can choose between a closed community, which means only people with the link, only people that you invite to look at that auction can bid and buy, or you can select it to be open. So that means to say anyone from anywhere, whether they're a member of your community or not, can look at the items on your auction and begin bidding on them. This can be really good if you want to get some surprise, you just want to raise money and you're excited about it and you do that. It does mean, however, that there are people outside your community, outside your town, outside your state, who might see an item that they really want and begin bidding on it. And then your own members don't get to bid on that thing because maybe they really are bidding it up high. Anyway, what I'm saying there is that when you open it up to outside your community, the opportunity to raise a lot of money is there, but it takes away the opportunity sometimes for your own local donors, your own members, to participate in maybe a smaller scale auction. I had this happen once where we had some sports memorabilia. It was a good year for Peyton Manning, and we had a signed helmet. And, you know, I thought it would make a few $100 in a local auction, but there was like a national bidder who wanted that and was like bidding it up into the thousands, which was great because at the end of the day, our organization got a lot of money for this helmet, but no one in our own community, we just weren't that wealthy and we weren't working with that kind of a system in place. So nobody got to bid on the Peyton Manning helmet. So I just say that to say, think about whether you want to open it up or keep it closed. It's a pretty reasonable setup fee. They do take a percentage. It goes from between 0.7% and 1.5%, depending on the volume. Bidding for Good is a pretty good system. I see I have a question, so before I move on to enterprise level, I will answer a couple questions about the mid-tier. Let me open up your question here. Dana asks, are the setup fees per auction or one time? That varies. Most of them are, one-time setup fees, like Bidding for Good. The setup fee, $249 is one time. The one that I looked at here, Octria, that's annual. So you get one auction a year for $199, and then next year they're going to ask you to re-up for that. So it depends. You'll have to take a look at that when you sign on. Amy asks, if we already use Tidely, can we just use our usual giving button for auction payments? Absolutely. So you'll have to do a little bit more work because what bidding software does, so Tidely, the money goes right to, so like I make a gift on Tidely, and that money is gone from my account and it's in yours. I can't really use it to bid because to put in a bid, I have to lock in an amount and hit some button that says it's off and running, right? So Tidely is good for making a donation. So if you run your auction live and you might be holding the item up on Zoom and saying, do I have any bidders for $100? And you're looking at your chat, maybe you're running it through your chat, right? Oh, Davey bids 100, okay, 105, okay, well, Susan bids 105, okay, well, 120. And you're running your event like that. And then you say, okay, the winning bid is Bill. And so will you please use Tidely to make your payment? You can do that. But what you can't do is the online bidding like eBay where you say, I'm willing to pay 60 bucks for this. And then you see, oh, well, somebody bid 61. Okay, well, now I'm willing to bid 70 bucks on this. And then you see, so you can't do that on Tidely. You have to, if you're doing that in real time and you're doing it on your phone, then Tidely is not the way to go. You'll need one of these auction softwares. Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to move on to enterprise level. So ClickBid, a lot of nonprofits use this, including like some really big nonprofits that run their auctions. So look at that setup fee, it's 795 bucks. And then you can add on features like Fund a Need or ticketing, and you buy these modules and you add them on to your platform. So it'll take care of a whole lot of needs, selling tickets, registering people, accepting donations, accepting gifts, doing Fund a Need, and running your auction. It's almost $800 to do that, and even more if you add on the features. They don't charge any transaction fees though. They make all their money in the setup. And so when you come to the auction and your people are bidding $1,000 on something, they're not being hit by an extra percentage on top of that for their gift. That could be a really attractive thing depending on how much money you have to run your auction. It is a good, easy bidding process. Online, you can run it on a desktop or on a phone. As I said, it incorporates the Fund a Need or text to give. So you can say, okay, our auction is closed. We've raised all the money on that we were gonna raise. Now let's start the furious fundraising and go through like who's giving $500. Oh, we have 10 people giving $500. Great. Who's giving $1,000? Oh, look at that. 7 people just said $1,000. You're raising money really fast. So it's a good way at the end of your auction to raise a little bit more money. One Cause is probably the most expensive of the options that I look at here. By the way, there are dozens of software platforms to use for charity auctions. I've just covered the ones that are being most commonly used in churches this year as I've been looking at events. You may already have experience with others or have recommended others. So do your research, learn about them. I'm just giving you the ones that I've seen most used in churches this year. One Cause, a very expensive setup fee, but once you do that, $1,250 or more if you're doing large volume auctions, you don't have, everything is included. Ticketing, sponsorships, auctions, Fund a Need, gifts, everything. They have their own payment processing. It's all handled. They don't charge any transaction fees for it. Everything comes in that setup fee. It also is on a really good platform. It runs very quickly. You'll note some days, if you've ever used eBay to bid on things, an antique or something like that, sometimes you'll notice like right at the moment, there's like a lag and you're trying to like make your last bid. I don't know if you guys bid like I do on things sometimes, but there it is. You don't want lags. You don't want a moment where you can't get access. One Cause runs on a really good platform and there is almost never a hitch because they've invested a lot in that technology. Are there any questions on any of these virtual auction platforms before we move on to just sort of like how you run an event, a little recap? Seeing none, I'm going to move on. We've got about 15 minutes left of our presentation and then we'll have some last questions. So you've decided you're going to run an event this year. Great. I'm proud of you. You can do this. Please do run your event virtually. Set the date, pick the theme, get out the information. So recruit your team early. Everything takes a long time in the pandemic. Develop a logo, make videos if you do that, create the collateral and find a way to distribute it. Get everything ready for your campaign. It's going to be really fun. I say that you should start early because all of these things take a long time. They take planning. So you should have your machine ready to go. Review and select your technology. So we've talked about a lot of technology today. Each one of them starts to lock you into choices. So map out your whole strategy. You're using this to sell or register tickets, using this to raise money, you're using this to run your auction, you're using this to make accounting. Keep in mind that you have to issue tax receipts. And when you're dealing with things like I have spent $100 on something, I have a thing in return for that. So consider all the tax implications. Donated items are not are tax deductible, so you don't have to worry about that. But just think all of that through. If you need help with your tax receipts, your diocesan finance office can give you your local, state, federal guidelines on how to do that. Sell your tickets. So we've talked about Eventbrite. There are other ticketing sources out there. You want to find a way to register people and get them to come and have this event promoted. So if you're using an auction, you can, or doing an auction, you can feature items every week, for example, or every day on your social media, like this great guitar is going to be featured. So look at it and get excited about it. Share it with your friends. You can build up the hype through your ticket sales promotion software. Run your event, have a lot of fun. Use Zoom if that's what your people are comfortable with, or Facebook Live if you've been using that for your weekly services, for example. Use whatever platform your church is comfortable with and has been using throughout the pandemic. Don't switch it up and use something new. Use what they have been using. Set a waiting room if you need to do that so that you can admit people who you know have purchased tickets. Keep everything a little short. So don't let the speeches or the presentations go on too long. Remember, everybody has a little bit shorter attention span and online than they do in person. And you're trying to get the whole event done in a couple of hours. If you have an inspirational video, sometimes people create them in-house or pay a company to do them a video. These are really great tools. Use them. They can really inspire people to understand the mission and to open up their generosity. When you're doing an auction, if you do an auction, take really good photos of your item. It's the only way you have to, so this might be a silly best practice or a reminder, but I'm a terrible photographer, by the way, and so I always have a friend, you know, my partner, as it is, take pictures and send them to me, because the lighting will be right and the colors will be right, and when I do it, it'll look wrong. So have somebody who knows what they're doing, take the best pictures of your item, write interesting and catchy descriptions. This is the only way that you have to communicate what this item is and why people might want it. So have fun with it. Create your auction and use your technology. Set your minimum prices, your floors, your ceilings, and your thresholds. Make it interactive. If you're using Zoom, for example, you know, you can say, you can bark up the expensive items, get people excited, use humor, all the tools. You're doing this for a really good cause. Have fun doing it. If you're going to use Fund a Need or Text to Give, I really do recommend them, because they are great ways at the end of your evening to scoop up any more money that might be out there. Set up your campaign using whatever software you want in the ways that we've talked about it today. Be energetic, be confident, don't be shy, ask for the money, right? You're doing this to raise money and raise awareness and fund mission that is inspired. So be bold. It's all going to a really good cause. Step 7, I would say, end with gratitude. And this is always the case with any fundraising event. We want to thank everyone who made it possible. I know this is second nature to y'all because we work in church and we do a lot of thanking, but the folks who have been on your committee, who have been working all summer on this, who have been thinking about it, have been working hard, acknowledge them, acknowledge all of your donors and your members for supporting this work. Make sure that they know, because the overhead was even less this year than it was in previous years, because you're doing it virtually, that more money is going to the mission, and that is really important. Thank them and give them next steps or ways to continue getting to know your ministry. So if you want to say, you know, next week we're having a Zoom follow-up about our food program, you can ask and answer more questions. Give them next steps. Keep them involved. You can run Zoom meetings for free as often as your folks want to get together. Finally, I recap. If you want to run a gala or an auction online and you want to spend almost nothing to do it, here is the recipe to do that. Sell your tickets on Eventbrite. Use your social media to promote your event. It's free and it's easy. Use Zoom to bring people together. It doesn't cost anything for folks to register for a Zoom link and to be able to get into it. Use Tithely to collect extra donations. So your church may already be using Tithely to do that. It's a great way to collect extra money. And use eBay for charity to run your auction. It's free. These tools are easy. They work with your software. They work with your back-end accounting software. They work with your social media. They should be easy to integrate on your website. So these are the ways to do free or very low cost events for your church. That's the end of this presentation and of this conversation. Well, it's not the end of the conversation. You may have questions. So I would love for you now to type in anything. If you have a comment, a suggestion for us all, if you have more questions than anything that we've covered today, I am open. Thank you so much. Are there any questions? I really do hope that you take advantage of the various tools that are out there to run your events this year. It's really, really important work, and we can do this together. I really hope that you will consider it this year, because this is the way, just for the foreseeable future, that we are going to uh, be able to do this work. It is the time and the place that we get this work together. Um, and I really hope that you take advantage of it. I've just put into the chat a few things that are really important for you to know today. Um, please take a moment, it only takes 2 minutes, to fill out a survey for us. It'll help us as we develop future events. To access all of the TENS materials, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship, I'm giving you the username and password and the link that gets you into the member resources. And then we have more webinars coming up. Many of you have participated throughout the summer on various webinars that we've been doing. Thank you very much for your support and for your interest in that. We hope we're delivering great content for you. We have one more coming up in October on planned giving. Based on your feedback to the survey, we will continue creating tools and using them. So please do let us know what you need and tell us how you can be involved and sign up for future webinars. I really appreciate the time you have taken today to do this. Thank you for being here. Again, this has been recorded, so I will submit this to you and send it all out so that you have access to it, as well as the slides. So you'll be able to see the video and the slides. In a week or so, I will send the slides in Spanish. They're still being translated. I wish you blessings and abundance on your fundraising this year in your church and in your ministry, and thank you very much for participating with the Episcopal Network for Stewardship. Have a beautiful day.